Nice to see everyone. My name's James Jerry, and we have a little digital marketing company doing, a bit of design work, a bit of websites, some Google ads, and optimize for that. And yeah, we've been having a lot of fun with that. And very exciting to see all these changes. I love how looking at saving some tokens. Maybe I've been enjoying that little caveman speak to try and reduce. So maybe include a little bit of why use many word when few word do trick. Yeah, cool. So what I'll do is that there's two things that I'm looking at. Is I'm going to just show you the problem that I solved for myself, what I currently how I'm using Alice Build, and then I'm just going to show you my way of doing it. The reality is that I'm not a developer. I am I'm very far from that, but I've been having a lot of fun in this world. Okay, so essentially, what I'm going to do is just a little study on. This is a case client that I'll use to show. So this is just a test mock-up thing. So Patina Studios is kind of like a dream child of a fashion label that I'll one day start, maybe, just for the purpose of the showcase. The problem that I went out to solve was I had an exceptional amount of pain during setting up proposals with clients. It took forever. It was frustrating. And so eventually I started down this journey with Alice a little bit using Cursor, and kind of finding a better way through it. And a kind of cool testimonial was the end result was one of the other clients I'll show you is I actually sat with them. There was a rocket launch today in the US. So I was going to their launch party. And the one lady who was responsible for going through all the proposals, I spoke to her and she said, James, the reason why we decided to go with yours is that your proposal was clear. You spoke to our exact issues at a granular detail. And she's like, and it felt like you've got the real problem. You got what our problem was. And that proposal was one of the quickest proposals that I'd done using kind of the system that I was trying to figure out for myself, rather than sitting there going through a presentation and what. So, let's go to, all right. So what I started off with is that so I built a little kind of, a dashboard to kind of get all my clients together. This client, Patina, and in Patina, so the first thing is like you want a place to kind of interact with your clients when you create the proposals, send the proposals through, kind of work all in one place, just trying to simplify, reduce clicks down to one as best as possible. And so things like you have to manage the members of it, giving them their roles, seeing what they see. And then if I just open up their workspace, and Martha, please keep me honest with time. I didn't do a time check test. Okay, so essentially what started off, it was a proposal. You start off, you create it, it gets sent through to the client. They can download it as a PDF, which is super nice, super fast, uses that the Chrome to do that sort of functionality. And then James Spaniard was like, well, you should add e-signature, add an e-signature to that. It's quite easy. And yeah, so it's like, yeah, you can do that. And so that was the one thing. So you're building a nice kind of very clear proposal, what's included, what's not included, how easy is it to make change, do versions of that, and so on. From there, I was like, okay, well, why am I using zero accounting? Why don't I just build out an invoice system? And so kind of linking in the invoicing from that proposal and kind of just prompting saying, okay, based upon the proposal that was approved, create the next invoice and send that through to the client. And that's kind of what happens. So it just adds in all their details, all their context that you've got in their system. And if they've got any questions, they can send that all through. They can again download the PDF. They get emailed a PDF as well automatically. And then I was like, okay, well, based upon the invoice and the proposal, why can't we create the tracker document and just hydrate all the tracking items across? And that's what it does. And then you've got a ability we can do the progress, just a very lightweight, what else kind of doing in Google Sheets. And you move that through. And then one of the clients I was having a lot of fuss with, I thought, he actually needs to see how much work we've done. So put this big in green and tell them every time we've completed a task. So he actually knows that he's getting 10x what he's paying. So cooler. And so we did that. And then I thought, okay, I want to build out we've got the Google Analytics 4, you've got page speeds, you've got your Google Business Profile, Google Search Console, you've got all these things kind of, I'm connected with all those things. Why can't I bring in that data? And so that's what I did. So you bring them through all the data. It goes and pulls that all out. It goes and extracts, and then it comes it through. And then I kind of just give it a little bit of my, a bit of my work history and experience, and saying this is what's important. And then it will generate a very quick summary. And so we do generate a monthly report for our clients, just kind of going through. This is all mock data over here, but in other clients, it's live and working. So we built that, and then every sort of bit of frustration I've been having, or everything that's kind of been siloed out, I've kind of just been folding it in slowly. So if we look at, just go back to the overview page. So now I've got this little outstanding thing that pops up there. So a nice reminder when a client walks in that pay your invoices on time in full. And so insights, then brand kit is another thing that we have a lot of fun with. I'm actually going to flip to the client that I met with this morning, just to show you what we had done. So essentially a bit of a frustration where you have a logo mark and you have 4 different versions of it. You have SVG, PNG, light mode, dark mode, primary, secondary. So you've got like about these multiple files, but you wanted to try and make it simple in one place. So that's what we did. So you've got secondary, dark mode, light mode, transparent background, solid background, PNG. And so you've got that across their logos, their color palette, copy their color palette, their font to go download their typography, get your LinkedIn banner, download that, create email signature. It's still a bit niggly for obvious reasons. Hate email signatures. And then the next thing was like copy a shareable link. So that's it's not gated. So that can go to, you can send it to the printers and they can go take whatever they want. They can go take the SVG logo and put it on a bunch of lanyards. And then the next stage from that is that as we build out our websites, we talk about a design language. And so we kind of like showing them the proposal of how does it all look together, not the actual website, but how does that look and feel come through? What do their buttons look like? How do we use their typography, the H1s, the H2s? What does the little motifs, signals, the tokens that we use, their color palettes again, gradients, the badges are these are just absolutely stunning. And I think there's always like a fight to try and move away from that anthropic slop of, it's a great communication device, but suddenly you see it becomes very cringe at a point in time. So you fight to try and move away from that place. So then you go into that design language, and then the next one this is just showing you what the printer would see, and I'll use that as an example of showing you how I go about in my caveman type way of amateur hour level of coding or doing this. And let me, I think that is, and then there's also just a nice little working on the website copy. You've got it's nice version controlled. You can leave your comments, timestamped, all that stuff. You can export this as a Word document, which a lot of the MS clients love using. I can't stand it. But it's a nice way for them to kind of work with it. And then a nice kind of ingestion, like to import that Word document into this thing again. So that loop when they want to take it to email and bring it back in. So it's been a lot of fun for me. And it's really been reducing a lot of the back and forth. Where's this link? Where's that thing? You just send them the same business.point marketing. Go there. That's where all your stuff lives. And that's really been fun. I've probably used all my time. I apologize. Very briefly, how I go about fixing something is, this is embarrassing. I will go in and I use Super Whisper and I hated that. And so now I just use GPT. I literally dictate what I want done. So I go here, screenshot. I wouldn't screenshot this one, but I would just make a prompt that's saying, in my Setco client, actually just like fill in the gaps, embellish and make my prompts better. And then I would go through what I wanted to do, where it sits in all that information, just kind of, and that actually is just where I'm thinking about what I actually don't want to solve. That's kind of what's really actually happening. It's just me throwing the tennis ball up in the air of what's going on. And then I'll take that and I will literally just jump it into, I use Cursor. I've tied it in. I've been loving the select which services I'm using. So my business.api and business app. Come over here, dump the MD file in there, turn it into plan mode. I'll kind of go Opus 4.8, depending on the task. If it's lightweight, obviously I go with the cheaper one. And then whenever I execute in the cheap Composure 2.5. And that new extension that you guys released 2 weeks ago has been absolutely fantastic. The most frustrating part about it is always forgetting to go back to my settings, tools, and hitting that, reload that getting that active, because you get going to run, but as soon as that's done, it's absolutely fly, soft corrects, and that has reduced the 100 clicks and keyboard shortcuts that I've had to learn to speed run the build and deploy section. Safe fate, my story's 8. No questions, please.
This is awesome. Yes.
Yeah.
Can I ask a sort of, I'm going to ask a question. I'm going to ask you to share your screen and walk us through your business.app and business.apis. I'll give a bit of backstory while you're doing it. So James was very excited. He's like, James, come, I want to show you, James and I, we share office space here. And he's like, I want to show you what I've built. And it's been a busy couple of weeks for me, including South Africa. I haven't been helping James at all. It was just literally, let me show you what I built. And I was like, oh, it's a pretty cool app. Very much expecting this to be like absolute chaos and slop under the hood. Because I knew James couldn't answer a single question of mine around architecture and code conventions. And I was like, okay, well, I want to see like how this was built. And so I said, ask Cursor to tell me how it was built. And it was going on about like Spanner and APIs. And I didn't believe it. And so I said, show me the deploy folder and the define folder. And there were actual protos. And there was actual like proper, as good as I would expect from anyone on our team, Terraform. And the app was good. And I was like, wow, I did not expect this. But that's actually a well-architected app with a proper backend. And all the sort of, and then he was like, and then I got signed in with Microsoft to work and using our IAM package. And I was like, well, you'll never know how much trauma we had to go through to get that package to work well. And so when we talk as a team about bowling with bumpers on and making the productionization of innovation feel easy, I think a lot about this, and my surprise at seeing proto buffs in James Jerry's repo after he had just asked me how to commit into Git.
That's my second job, is to build out huge binary folders and then submit that and then ask Danielle to go and clean them up for me. That's another.
Yeah. That's the last remaining guardrail. And James, we hope that Build can help take you along your developer journey. I know I know that now that you've become an experienced engineer, when you came up to me and you're like, I'm really excited to refactor this entire thing. I was like, well, now you really are an engineer. What value is that adding to your customers? But from a product perspective, yeah, it shows. It was great to see kind of like in there the proto, the Terraform, and from a product perspective, we want to take you along that journey, so it's not a black box, but you're kind of starting to understand what's in there. But please keep giving us feedback along the development workflows.
Yeah, and I will just say on that black box kind of mindset, there's been a lot, like as you're kind of going down this journey, you're seeing the things that are happening on the peripheral, and then you're starting to grasp these concepts. And then as soon as you hit something that's broken, like you even with this an agent helping you, you eventually unlock it and go, that's why that is important. So there's some stuff that is hopefully sticking, even if it's 3%.
Yeah.
Question, James, do you look at the code while you're doing that stuff?
Yes and no. Mostly no. Sometimes I do. Very rarely. There's not much utility. It's like, I apologize.
It's crazy. It's like just a bit of structure, a little bit like just, and suddenly it becomes, it's a completely different game.
And and then suddenly it's what's really been a wonderful thing is that in the marketing space, or I'm supposed to in everyone's space, like whenever you're trying to think about something new to do, there's always okay, well, how do I actually action that? And that's always like a handbrake in terms of like momentum, because there's the fear of like, oh crap, that's like a huge sunk of time into that thing, and is it really worth it? And now you actually, because you've now kind of you've given that away to this agent, and you generate all the. It's like a basic pattern. You generate it all. Now you can just think freely about. Hang on a second. Like for me, it's about looking at the button. How do we elevate these buttons? Not okay. I have to make a button. Like no. Okay, now the buttons all been made. All they work, and then at a scale, I can just talk about like this is the tone. This is actually what I'm looking for. And then you start thinking a little bit bigger, and then you start to bring that back into a very clear prompt. Or at least that's my world. Anyway, thank you, Alice.
That's so cool. It's very, very cool. Someone actually made a comment and said it's crazy how you could do all that without getting lost in the technicals. And I agree, because it looks beautiful. And that's usually my problem with AI generated slop, is I have to fight about which button went where. So that looks great, James. Thank you for sharing. Okay. So
I mean, it highlights the importance of guardrails from a Bolt team. If you do that stuff, we've got to make sure that this thing works. Oh.
I just have one more question. Just Mother was triggered by what you said, but I'm just curious, James. So, like the visual identity side of these things, like how do you guide it to make things look beautiful in the way that you do? Because I think like that is often our struggle as well. And I'm just curious, like how much is in your upfront prompting or structure that you create, how much do you have to iterate to get to those kinds of outputs? Just any kind of indication of your process and what you've found helpful for making things look nice.
Sure, that's first very high praise, thank you. But it's definitely never a one shot. The one shot always looks one shot, and it always looks disgusting. And I find it does take a lot of iteration, because it's also that's just part of the exploration. Actually figuring out what you like is also going through. Okay, no, I don't like that. Okay, so then what do I want? So there is quite a lot of back and forth. I always start with an overall sort of theme, some references. I kind of spitball into the ChatGPT sort of expand, and like, this is my hate, this is what I detest, and so there's a lot of work, because the Anthropic stuff just turns out it's a great communication device and being very clear and well structured. But as soon as you come into as soon as you start like getting that codified, it just looks the same. So it's the same level. And I think it's just the second thing is just being pedantic about every small thing. I mean, the common joke around designers is that you go through 10 hours of debates around a button. If this goes, it's not zooming in for whatever reason. So like looking at, how do you make a button lickable? Like, I know it sounds weird, but like you make that thing, like you want to make that thing pop out and just stand out and just elevate without being obnoxious. And so there's a lot of iteration goes around that. So for me personally, I subscribe more to the Apple. I love when the Apple Glass came out and they said, well, we've given you a toggle now that you can go no transparency. And so it's completely legible and complete glass. I went like, let's go complete glass. Like let's go for beauty over functionality. So from my side, it's always about fighting around being very clear about what I want in my corner radius, being clear about, I think it's being pedantic about stupid, tiny little details that no one cares about. That's where I spend a lot of my time. And I think can
I just interrupt and ask, like, what you're saying now, how much of that is in your initial prompt? Like that kind of, if you have the sense of like the brand identity and stuff,
yes.
How much of that are you dictating up front versus like, let's get a crappy version that from a basic prompt and then specifying those like more specific details?
I would say, so lately it would be very much all that detail, like what I'm talking about, that is upfront. So I'm pushing that in from the get-go. If there's like a piece of low-level collateral that I could not care about, it's the cheapest model, this is what I want, and then it turns out the generic Anthropic sort of design language. And if you, but if there's something of value, like for example, what you're looking at here, it still needs a lot of work because there's a lot of kind of mess, but I am very clear, and it's just honoring what I'm originally going for, and then just rehashing that and actually spending time on saying, because it does like a huge chunk of work, and then by narrowing in on each component and say, okay, this is what I want done, and then it sorts it out, and then you move into the next one. So you can't just if you try and flood your context with all that detail, which I do, it misses a lot of that. So you kind of have to go back and reiterate these points. So, I mean, it could be a cool exercise to just rather break it down. And I should actually probably just try and break it down based on what you're saying and go very skeleton and then zooming in and then just talking about each piece. Could be worth trying.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. Also, last question from my side, I think. But from what it seems like, is you living in Cursor, so is all of your design happening in Cursor, or are you leveraging something like the Claude Design or any other kinds of tools as well?
No, it would probably just be Figma and Cursor. Doing it in that the HTML exports are. I mean, this is crazy. I went and I had a client. One of my clients has got a beauty studio here, and I was late behind getting some collateral for them. They needed some like gift cards, heavy paper, some gold foiling. They needed to be done in French. They needed like this, all in French. The QR code, all that stuff. That was basically because I had the whole context window. I had all their context of their business and all their details. This was basically a one-shot sort of. This is what I need. This is kind of what I wanted to do, and then generates the HTML that was printer ready. And I literally sent that to the printer. And yeah, so I suppose it's mainly Cursor is what I've been working with, and then linking onto the appropriate model if you're not coming right with the cheaper ones, then you flip onto something a little bit more expensive.
Oh, what a time to be alive.
What a time to be
also,
alive.
last week, a major farming retail, just not to be vague, also gave a gift to one of their products, and I found out that the majority of their labels are also being like, whether it's like a ChatGPT image generation or sort of Figma HTML flow. It's insane.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, and it's changing every single day.
That's cool. Thanks, guys. Okay, so I think we'll wrap it up there. Thank you for this time. Again, invitation is open to everyone to please demo, show us what cool stuff you've been up to. As you can see, the spectrum is quite wide, so it goes deeply technical or as beautiful as you'd love it to be. And yeah, you know where to reach me. The Alice Gang, I want to challenge you to the next demo. You all know who you are. So show us something nice as well. And other than that, have a great afternoon, and we'll see you in the next one.